So, Jeremy, back in 2003, you were one of the main MPs and politicians to oppose the invasion of Iraq and the Iraq War. Now, 22 years later, we find ourselves ahead of a similar situation where you have Western governments potentially threatening to attack Iran, and Israel is attacking Iran. What's your main message at the moment? Because history is repeating itself in a very ugly way.
Over the past 2.5 decades, we've had a war with Afghanistan.
Yeah.
We've had a war with Iraq. We've had a war with Libya. In every case, billions were spent on armaments, and in every case, poverty, destruction has been left behind with broken societies and a lack of any coherent sense of government. I feel that we're now lining up to have this war with Iran, which will have exactly the same consequences. Nobody doubts the military power of the United States. We all know what it's capable of. How much better if that brilliance and that capability was put instead towards looking for peace, for coexistence, and for a nuclear agreement with Iran. And there is a chance today with the meeting between Britain, France, Germany and Iran. I hope that bears fruit.
Okay. Israel attacked Iran. It was Israel who started this. How unnecessary is this military activity, military intervention, an attack on Iran?
Well, Israel clearly did attack Iran and clearly did so for reasons that it wants to divert attention away from the horror of its war crimes in Gaza. Let's just remind ourselves, we're watching in real time on live television children being starved to death when there's food available. And the Hunger Games, when people queuing up to get food from some kind of food truck are shot because they want food.
And what is the end game in this? There was no clear end game in Iraq apart from destabilization and military intervention. What is the end game now, both in Gaza, in Palestine, and in Iran?
There is no end game other than one that ought to be a desperate plea for peace, and peace for the Palestinian people, which can only come by ending the occupation.
Yeah. And one last question. Why does it keep repeating itself? Why do we find ourselves in the same situation? And what is your ultimate message?
It's the mindset and military thinking of foreign ministries and defense ministries around the world, and it's the malevolent influence of the arms industry which makes billions out of arms sales and out of war. Last year, global arms expenditure was $2.7 trillion. This year it could be $3 trillion. So we underfund the UN, we underfund the UN Food Programme, we underfund the ICRC, Red Cross, and so much else. Yet there's always money for war.
Awful. Okay, one last thing I just remembered is, did you see the video that PAL Action did yesterday? They raided an RAF base. And then now the UK government is potentially moving to prescribe PAL Action as a terrorist organisation. How do you feel about that?
It's very dangerous when you start calling peaceful protest an act of terror, and that leads to a very dark place in legal and civil liberties within our society. So I urge the government to think for a moment about what they're doing here. Even at the height of the apartheid regime in South Africa, when Margaret Thatcher was calling Nelson Mandela a terrorist, they didn't prescribe the ANC in Britain. They did not call the ANC a terrorist organization. Why not? Because they recognised there had to be a place for negotiation.
And the Israeli government has committed far worse crimes, and it's accused of genocide at the ICJ, and the leaders of the Israeli government are accused of war crimes by the
Palestine
ICC.
Action are not starving children in Gaza. They should just reflect on this for a moment, and their role as ministers and their role historically in all of this. Surely to goodness, wouldn't they want to be remembered as ministers that did something to bring about justice and peace for the Palestinian people, rather than attack those who support the Palestinian people?